You are listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am so glad that you're here and that you decided to press play, and I'm thrilled to share the work of my guest with you. She's legendary fashion expert and CEO Kay Sides, and we're talking about how to build a positive relationship with stress. And so often on Instagram and the show, we talk about diminishing stress, eliminating stress, bringing in balance, and all of that is good. But I also think there's something to be said for having that fire in your belly, for having that pressure on you so that you can get things done and not letting it overtake you, but working with that motivation, working with that stress so that you can be the most effective mother or the most effective CEO or the most effective employee, whatever it is in your life. And, this applies whether you have people under you or not. And so we also talk about how to be an effective leader and, how to deal with stress in a positive way, how to lead really from the back, with inclusion, with integrity, with the ability to have hard conversations with people so that everybody can win, so that everybody can grow and learn. And I took a lot of what Kay was saying to heart, to use with my children. And so I think you're really going to love that aspect of it too. So again, whether you have employees underneath you or not, these are key lessons that you can bring into your life with your family, with your friends, and benefit from that. So I'm so excited to share this episode with you. If you love it, please share it with a friend. Please continue to leave us a review if you haven't already. It takes 5 seconds, and I read every single one, and it really touches my heart when you take the time to do that. So thank you. So please enjoy this episode with Kay Sides. This episode is brought to you by Public Goods, the one-stop shop for affordable, sustainable, healthy household products. From home and personal care to premium pantry staples, Public Goods has everything you need all in one place. Now imagine a marketplace that had everything that you needed for your home, for your personal care. We're talking towels to shampoo to breakfast cereals, anything you could imagine that you need day to day, especially as we're all spending much more time at home. And they price it at a price point that is completely unbelievable. Well, that is Public Goods, and that's why I love this company. We've worked out an exclusive deal just for the Motherhood Unstressed podcast listeners. Receive $15 off your first Public Goods order with no minimum purchase. That's right, they are so confident that you will absolutely love their products and come back again and again that they are giving you $15 to spend on your first purchase. You have nothing to lose. Just go to publicgoods.com/unstressed or use code unstressed at checkout. That's publicgoods.com/unstressed to receive $15 off your first order. Well, hello, Kay. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you, Liz. So excited to be here and so really happy to share some time with you today.
Yeah. So, before we jump into all the juiciness of the conversation, tell us how you got to where you are today and how the idea of Rome came to be.
Yeah. So just really quickly in a nutshell, so lucky and fortunate to be born and raised in Hawaii, where I spent like 95% of my time outdoors. I just was always that really active athlete. I grew up being a ballerina. And Rome was really born out of a need, really out of a search for something that didn't exist in the market, that was well-made and fashionable and cool and conscious and diverse, something that could really take me from workout to work, to school drop off, to a meeting, from off summiting Mount Kilimanjaro to coffee, to lunch, to travel. And really, I wanted to be part of a solution for so many diverse and dimensional women that I know. So, we've worked really hard, to create a product that we're really proud of. So,
yeah. And you have an extensive history in the fashion industry. Talk to us about that. Talk to us about some of the players that you've worked with. I mean, it's just astounding.
Thank you so much. So fortunate to have had, such a privileged journey so far. I've had just 3 jobs my whole life. I started really early. I graduated from college early and kind of always had like the big fire in the belly and just happened to be, I think right place, right time. So started working for Chanel like while I was in college, and was really lucky to be able to cross over to the corporate side, where I helped run accessories for all of North America. And then from that, I went to Maxfield, where I was the creative director and the buyer for both men and women, and private label, which was just an astounding, experience. Forever grateful. And then created and opened Hatch now for over 15 years, which we have the privilege of building some of the largest young designer and contemporary brands for the US and international markets. And we also have created really from the inception, which is just a big part of sort of like my thread for my whole life, but a very strong and active service platform at Hatch. And that we also have one with Rome too, which we can kind of talk about and go into later. But really, really every step of the way have I think as we all kind of continue on our personal and professional like journeys, it's so, I have so much gratitude for every step of the way. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so amazing. Because I'm always intrigued by women who have really successful careers. I mean, was it something that you knew that you wanted to do? You wanted to work in fashion when you were in college. You knew you wanted these key positions, or was it just following the next thing that came up?
Yeah, I always loved fashion and art, and but was kind of, I think, like not necessarily that typical fashion person, of just being able really connected to nature and sports, and that was always sort of a big passion of mine. And to be honest, always have about my educational background is in international business and in marketing, so I think it just sort of knew always in fashion, but to be really honest, like opening the agency, like really sort of was not a planned thing, So,
wow.
Yeah.
For 15 years too. I mean, that's significant for anyone in business.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been amazing. Like, so love my team so much. And, it's such an invigorating and healthy environment. And to be honest, I think that's the part that I'm most proud about.
Yeah. So talk to us about like what it means to be a woman in leadership. I mean, were there people that you worked under that you learned a lot from, that you wanted to say, like you saw them and how they operated and you're like, okay, I want to do that once I have people underneath me. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, there are so many amazing women that I was so fortunate along the way. And both, I think, as, we all go through, you really get informed. Sometimes to also the greatest learning is to be like, hey, that's not for me, no judgment, but definitely that was a big impotence, I think, of like when I have my own agency or when I have my own business, I kind of would like to kind of structure it or have it a different way. And then just having so many of those amazing women as either, pop up as guides or friends, along the way that, are just phenomenal, that, we all keep learning and supporting like one another. So.
Yeah, that's huge, because I think too in traditional corporate life, sometimes it's a little dog eat dog, especially when it comes to women in the workplace. It's like there's only so many positions for us. So we feel like we have to compete, at least in the past. How have you structured your business to really promote inclusion and support and health and wellness to avoid those pitfalls?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I really agree with you. And I think, the number one thing is really kind of emphasizing all that we're a team. No one works for me. We work together. And I think, as a female leader or any kind of leader, the greatest, support that you can give to your team is being in action. So I'm a walker, action kind of person instead of a talker. And I think the best, ways that I've been impacted, whether it's, personally, professionally along the way by other women, are just by example, of just seeing it for myself. And consistency, like those little actions on a consistent basis, day by day for myself are, a lot more significant and meaningful sometimes than the big grand ones,
Oh, absolutely. It's everything.
Yeah,
It's everything.
it is.
Because anyone can say anything, right?
Totally. So for me, it's really like that's who you are. Even kind of referencing back through this time period that obviously we've all been going through. But right from the start, I was like, these tricky times are really tough times. They don't make you; they just expose who you really are.
This episode is brought to you by the Homeschool Buyers Co-op. And what is that exactly? Well, it's the world's largest buyers club for homeschooling families. Founded in 2005, they're a family-owned and operated business dedicated to providing top-quality curriculum at the lowest price possible. And the best news yet, it's completely free to join. But if you use my referral code MOTHERHOOD, you automatically get 5,000 points, which translates to cash to buy anything that you would like on the website. And basically, school districts get discounts, they have buying power, but rarely do homeschooling families have that kind of clout. And so by joining a co-op, you automatically get entered into that. You are part of that community. Their website for you is homeschoolbuyersco-op.org. Again, use my referral code, check it out. As someone who struggled with doing virtual learning last spring due to COVID, I have definitely been checking out some other options. And yes, that includes homeschooling. And so being a part of a co-op where you actually have buying power is essential if that's the route you want to go.
So, and it's all like a choice. But it's a team effort for sure. I think if you have a healthy environment, or one that really encompasses a lot of wellness, everyone has to be part of that, and I'm so grateful that, to have the teammates that I do and that we all really support each other that way. But it's an environment of complete transparency, complete trust, complete accountability, because that goes with it. You can't have one without the other. And we're really, mistakes are really encouraged. It's, a very safe environment. So it's as invigorated of an environment that, we are, it's one that is a teaching environment. So everything is an opportunity to grow and get better. And I think that when you have a space or a professional space like that, then there's no limit, as to what people will continue to expand into. And I think that because, I've made such a concerted effort of that constant level of communication and transparency that there's no question, and that certainly doesn't mean that sometimes you don't have to have the tough conversations too, or of course, like that's part of it. But I think that when the intention of integrity is so clear on a constant and consistent daily basis, everyone is so, the receptivity to it or the gratitude for having those tough conversations or, supporting one another through maybe like a bump, professionally, becomes even more profound and meaningful. Because as you and I both know, in some ways, it's almost easier like not to have those, discussions. Most people, it's they're not comfortable sometimes. Sometimes it's a lot of time investment to say like, hey, okay, like, maybe this sort of, action continues to take place, and that's sort of not serving on a variety of levels. And let's work together, or let's kind of figure out like a new paradigm for you, or, what is going to kind of like help you to be able to kind of go from going left to go right. And that takes time, time, energy, commitment, for everyone involved. So,
absolutely.
But yeah, and so really, it's really kind of an amazing environment of growth. I think is the number one thing for me, to really I'm so motivated and inspired all the time to create an environment that can be ever growing and ever expanding. And part of that is always thoughtfully thinking of for each teammate, like what are also experiences that are going to challenge them. So, how do you always have that balance, right? Of like, great, you're crushing it in this one place, and other aspects of it are like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable for me, or this is so hard for me. But I think that is, the reason that, the team just loves being the team that we are, because it is that constant opportunity to stretch ourselves or grow, or for myself, and also part of what has been a beautiful aspect about Rome is that I love being a learner. So I love always being, in some area of my life, like I'm a beginner, or I'm underwater, or I don't know anything, or I'm trying to figure it out. So, I think just that for me personally is always lends such a great perspective to the rest of my life. And it really helps, when we're talking about balance, to always have that healthy balance. Because maybe in one area, you're really empowered, or you're very confident, or this is something, really in each of our wheelhouses, that you're like, oh yeah, no problem. But I think to just only have a life of that is really just very one dimensional, as opposed to, there's this whole other area that you're like, oh my gosh, I know nothing, and yeah.
So how do you balance, playing to your strengths while also growing and evolving? Because, obviously to be really successful, you want to double down on what you're good at, kind of lessen the stuff that you're not, or at least hire out. So how do you balance that aspect of yourself? Because I'm the same way. I love to learn, constant, huge amount of curiosity, but then it's like, okay, stick to what I'm good at as well.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge for all of us, right? Because we obviously don't have so much of that luxury of time of where you have to pick and choose and say like, okay, right now, this is, like you said, these are my areas of strength, or I'm able to really, efficiently maximize here. And then maybe that allows me like this much space right now to be focused on, learning, or this new project that I'm going to go for and try to develop. But I try to always have, like, whether it's, one constant thing professionally that I'm always sort of like a novice at, and then something personally too. So that which I really enjoy, like some new thing that I'm like, oh, I really want to learn that. I really, nutrition has always kind of been my passion, of like sports nutrition. So that's always kind of been that constant thread of, so whether it is like, doing different certifications over the years, or studying, or, learning from mentors. It's like, it's really fulfilling, for myself. But also, I think that it's so important to inspire yourself and not look outside for someone or something to inspire you or to ignite you. So that's, my accountability, and my accountability to myself and to my team and my family. And I know that's also like the best value that I can offer them. Like, it's no one else's responsibility but my own, to stay excited and invigorated and refreshed, and inspired. And I certainly have had times, through my journey, my professional journey, that I was maybe feeling like not as inspired. And so then it's just sort of like, I would kick my own ass to be like, okay, well, inspire yourself, like, what do you have to do to inspire yourself? And I know that if I'm inspired, then, I can inspire, I'll have that like truthful energy to inspire like my team.
I love that. I love that line. It's so beautiful. And it's true, like you said, in professional life and personal life. You can't rely on someone in your relationship to make you happy. You have to really self-generate that. It's so true. And it seems like you have these tough conversations with yourself, like you do with your team. Like, you're not afraid to talk to yourself and say, okay, let's go.
Oh yeah, not at all. I always say, like, you have to, you have to call bullshit on yourself. All the time. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be, still with kindness, right? Because I think we all are so hard on ourselves. So, and just, especially with balance, that ever elusive balance, right? Yeah. Where, and I think it's just, for me, of like, when I do find myself in that time also of just, like being kind and letting it ride, like knowing that, okay, so you're not right now. Like, to be honest, when this whole, COVID shutdown occurred, it was really hard for me, to find that like balance of, wellness, primarily like for working out, because that's a big part of like my health and my wellness. And I'll tell you, like, those first 3 weeks, I mean, I just, I sat on my Fitball, Liz, literally from like 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day on Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call. And I just couldn't find it. Like, I couldn't fit it in. And I just, kind of just told myself like, okay, cool. So you're not, and don't trip, and you're gonna find it. Like, you're gonna get to that place. And, in the meantime, like, just, it's okay, like, to just let it ride, like, off balance for a while. Yeah. So
I think that's so beautiful, especially now, like everything that's been going on with COVID, with, everything else in the news that's really dark and traumatic. It's important, I think, to have that mindset, that grace for yourself. And going back to balance, career, motherhood, it's something that is talked about all the time because it's reality that we're living in, intensified now with COVID.
Totally. Yes.
What has worked for you personally in finding that balance, or at least feeling like you can kind of get back to center by doing certain things? What do you love to do?
Yeah. I really kind of made a decision like a while ago that, personally and professionally, like, the people that I surround myself with, that they would not be, that their time wouldn't be impacted by my balance.
Today's sponsor is Hero Cosmetics. They sent us over the Mighty Patch, which is a hydrocolloid acne patch. And I actually had a pimple pop up last night, so I slapped on a Mighty Patch Original, and in the morning, the pimple was completely flat. It was so cool. And I think as women, we're really used to dealing with harsh chemicals as a way to clear up acne on our skin. I mean, I'm in my 30s and I'm still dealing with this, especially when it comes to ovulation time or PMS time. Like, they just come up. So to have something that doesn't burn my skin and feel like it's tearing it apart is really incredible. And in the Mighty Patch, there's only one simple ingredient, and it's suitable for even the most sensitive skin types. And it's kind of cool. When you take off the patch, you can actually see the gunk from the pimple in the patch. So it's oddly satisfying, as gross as that sounds, to see how it's just cleared and cleaned up your skin. And again, you put it on overnight, and what was once red and gross and disgusting is now this healed, flat surface. So definitely go to herocosmetics.com and use the code MOTHER15 and see for yourself.
So, I do things where I get up like super early and I try to get like my own, meditation or workout done. So I'm in the office by 7, like every day. So I'm ready, like for my team, before like they come in. So I'm just, and I'm just so respectful of like everybody's time, which I think starts for me, like being respectful of my own, and then just that attention of when I'm at work, I'm 100% at work. So I'm not distracted, like I'm not on personal calls, or I don't respond to texts. And then when I'm home, I'm 100% like at home. And that's just, it seems so simple, but that's a really big,
it's hard.
Yeah. And then when I am at work, I really try to, I'm so conscious of like my time. So I almost kind of like allocate like little blocks of time for all the things that I want to do. So that really just kind of helps keep me like stay on task, and really kind of that accountability like to myself. And then, my biggest thing, I've always had like a huge love affair, of course, with nature, and adventure travel. So it's just, making sure that I feed that, it's so important for me. Each person has their own place or space, I think, of oxygen, or oxygenating themselves. But, to be in those places that, man had nothing to do with creating are so important for me on every level. So.
I mean, honestly, I think you put any human in a really beautiful environment and their stress down regulates and they start to breathe slower and feel different. And even if they like touch the earth, in their backyard, like it changes you, it changes your chemistry in your body. So there's something to that. I totally agree.
Oh my God. Me too. I'm such a believer, and raising my daughter like in nature and just having, lots of moments of, I mean, she's such an amazing teacher, nature is like to us all on so many levels of, problems. And you can't control things, which I think is the greatest gift, being there, like, you're camping or you do a big trek. It's like all things are out of your control, if the weather, if you get injured, if you just have to be able to sort of be that present and that focused to be like, okay. And then creatively, really like, how do you problem solve, when you're restricted or when you're limited or when you didn't plan, to run out of food like that early or, just I love all those things that it sort of like brings up and affords, because there's really not very many other truthful experiences, at least for myself, that are out there that you really just relinquish and you surrender like completely.
Wow. Yeah. Do you think if you hadn't grown up in Hawaii, you would have this same perspective? I mean, you're surrounded by such epic beauty. I mean, you've taken it into your career, into parenting, into everything. It's just really been like the foundation for your success.
Yeah, you're totally right. And no, I don't think so that I would be. You're exactly right. And I talk about it all the time, or I say that, I'm so blessed, like, to be able to have grown up in a place like that. And more, I think, just because we grew up with so much reverence and respect, especially for the ocean, right? Because and where you just, I don't know, you grow up like just knowing that you're just this little tiny dot, and in the big scheme of things. And hopefully if you make good choices, then you'll be purposeful for the short amount of time that we're all here for others, and not just yourself. And, but always that reverence and respect that, you're not in control here. Like, this is not your show. So, happy to be a guest, and happy to be like, so grateful for that. Like, if you spend time in the ocean or spend time in the mountains, but, that's definitely a big part of, I think, what formed me, Yeah.
No, that definitely comes across. So, we talked a little bit before about, paying it forward and doing more service work. What's going on in your companies that you've established in doing that to nurture that group that's coming up?
Yeah. So even original, obviously with Hatch, service, as I shared before, has always been part of our platform. And it was always sort of this idea that I had of like, well, you can really incorporate service into anything, and that just sort of became part of the philosophy, like, of the company. Like, yes, we're a fashion company, but at the same time, we have this really big service platform. So it started small, obviously donation. And then right away it became like, I want to do more than write a check. Like, I really want to be in action with it, So we started doing things like creating, a holiday party for the One Kids shelter downtown. Then we did My Friend's Place, which is the one teenage shelter that's in Los Angeles. We moved to doing, for years, we threw the holiday party for the entire staff and the children, as well as all of their families. That was at Mount Sinai Pediatric Oncology Unit, which was really, really beautiful. And then we also, for years, helped raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for tsunami relief, as well as Hurricane Sandy relief. We partnered with Waves for Water, which is an amazing organization. And then we even went so far as to raise our own funds, and then generate over 350 water filters that we then went to Nicaragua and then we installed ourselves. So it just, I don't know, it just sort of like any of those things I felt that were really truthful for myself, and working with people that were who they say they were and who they said that they were impacting were really, really who they were. So that was a big part of, I think, why we kind of continued with Waves for such a long time, because they were such a small, nimble organization and completely transparent, and, really, really loved the work that they were doing. So, and then for Rome, our initiative there is one, obviously, that I'm so passionate about and very truthful to myself, but it's an initiative where we are going to take as many children as we can outside in nature. So we started last year. We took 75 third graders from an East LA school, like out on a hike. It was so epic.
I have a third grader, so I know it's a lot of energy.
Oh, do you? It was so amazing.
This episode is sponsored by Smart for Life. The Smart for Life program is a healthy way for quick and safe weight loss. By following the program correctly, you can burn 3,500 calories or 1 pound every 2 days. It was created by Dr. Sasan Mulavi, who's a bariatric physician with over 20 years of experience. The Smart for Life diet can help you lose weight the healthy and sustainable way. And so what happens on this diet? Well, you get to eat cookies, but they're not just regular cookies. It's 5 to 6 cookies that you eat throughout the day with a glass of water, and they're full of protein and fiber, and they're low in sugar. So it's everything that your body needs to be healthy without all of the other junk. And if you're not a fan of cookies, I don't know how that could be, but some people aren't. They also have delicious soups and shakes. So this is a very effective diet to help you lose weight if you've been struggling and nothing is budging and you're looking for something new and safe and actually healthy to do that. So head over to smartforlife.com and check out their program today.
I had one of my best friends who owns like the best outfitter in Yosemite, and he's an amazing environmentalist and naturalist. And he came down and he led the hike, but it was so unbelievable. 98% of those kids had never been on a hike before, had never been outside in nature. So they were so pumped, and to just share like that, that like freedom, that joy, like with them all was so beautiful. So we had this amazing day that we took them on a hike. They ended up going much longer because at first we were like, oh no, like how long should we go? But we just sort of, let them we just gauged where everybody was at, and they just kept wanting to explore more and learn more. We created a lesson plan that mimicked what they happened to be studying at the moment. So they were studying life cycles of humans. So we created one that was the life cycle of trees. Which was so cute. And then we did this custom sort of like treat for them, which was they loved so much. And then we brought a whole bunch of school supplies so that we could actually do the activity. And then we donated them because the teachers who were just so unbelievable had shared with us previously that, and this too, that so many of the public schools here, have gotten so many of their funds, reduced or cut in terms for excursions. At that time, they also did not have a budget for any art supplies. So, we were like, okay, the little bit that we can contribute, we're so happy to. So it was just this amazing day. And then we had another one planned in March in Colorado with this really amazing organization there. And then unfortunately got, got postponed. So we were so bummed, but we can't wait, for us to kind of get back to that work. But really so passionate about that. And I don't know, I think maybe because I was that kid that grew up in nature, it's like, I just know that, it could just be that one time, that maybe sparks you as a child that you're like, oh my gosh, or I remember that, or I love learning about that tree or those flowers or those plants or anything. So, that's,
and I think too, just having someone care about you, having someone donate art supplies and take you out on this hike that you never would have had the opportunity to do, growing up where you grew up. I mean, that's life changing. That's beautiful. Like I have chills just talking to you about that.
Oh, so cute. It was just magic. It was honestly, the gift was to us, because they were so cute and so excited. And it made us so happy because so many of those kids after were like, oh, I'm going to tell my mom and dad, that I really love hiking. Like I didn't know what hiking was, or I'm going to tell my dad, to take me on a hike. And we were so stoked. So, yeah.
Ripple effect. Ugh, I love it. So we've covered a lot of ground: motherhood, parenting, career. If there were one takeaway that you would want to leave with the audience about your work or about anything in life, what would that be?
I think that probably, not to trade your authenticity for safety. I think that sometimes, especially early on in our careers, that we gauge, our success from feedback from others, which of course is really important. But I think that there are so many different types and, of attachments to what success is supposed to look like. And that really differs for each one of us. which it should, and that's kind of the beauty of all of us, being here. So I think just kind of like getting to that place where, you are not making an accommodation of like just playing it safe, instead of, I think the best inspiration, and we touched about this, previously too, is that you can be for others is to be the most truthful version of yourself. And also I think just having starting to have a relationship with stress and failure, because I think those are things that, you don't really necessarily look to kind of like bringing in closer to your life. There's always sort of more of a tendency or a desire to like move away from them. But also I think sort of a negative like connotation to stress and failure. When it's really just sort of flipping that script and being like, oh, actually, I want to have I have an amazing relationship with stress. Stress is a beautiful thing. Like, we need stress to grow in every area of your life, whether it's physically, you have to stress your muscles to make them stronger, or your bones. Same thing with your skill sets, professionally or personally. Sometimes, as we all have like going through a different, personal hardships or tough time. Like, if you choose it, it really makes you a stronger person or a much more open person. So I think those probably are, so important or meaningful for me.
Oh, I love that. Because you're right. I think, everyone wants to be stress-free and completely balanced, and that's when you win and that's when you succeed in life. And that's not true. And I think what you just said is so spot on and so authentic and so real. Having that relationship with stress, a healthy relationship, not being afraid of it, not being down about failure. And that's how I think that's really why you have risen to this level, because of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. But yeah, I think so too. Like, I think there's a lot of that messaging of like to avoid stress, or to escape stress, which, I no disrespect, but for myself, I'm like, well, I don't really think that that's, in terms of like wellness or health, realistic or a real truthful message, because there's stress everywhere. We all have it. And I think it really is just learning how. And I think sometimes there's not enough guidance about that. Like, well, how do you build, like a positive relationship with stress, or, how do I encourage it sometimes, like, into my life, or make it my friend, So
you have to answer that question. I'm dying to know.
I don't know. I mean, we talk about that a lot with my teams, and especially sometimes, we have a lot of assistants or interns, and I'm like, gosh, that's the one thing, like, for sure, I wish somebody had said to me, like, when I was, a teenager, or make me think about that in a different way, to be like, oh yeah, like, why I'm not, there's no need to like avoid this, and sometimes just having a different messaging, like, to yourself about it, is just all the difference that it makes, instead of like, that, oh my gosh, and this or that, or I've, so much, it's like, oh, how lucky I am, how grateful I am to that I have this really full life, or, even that I'm being challenged, like with this perplexing situation. And, I know I have the aptitude or the intelligence or the stamina, the emotional stamina to figure it out or to get there. And, like, wow, it's amazing, like amazing opportunity for me to kind of like embrace. So I think so much of it is really just that dialogue, even, or how you position it, like, in your life, instead of, and the same for failure, right? Of like, if you're a risk taker, you're a fearless, woman, it's like, that's going to be part of your journey, like, no matter, for all of us, and those times for me are ones that, have I had projects or businesses that didn't go exactly the way that I had thought? Yeah, of course. And I'm so grateful for them. I learned so many things, or even if it was just to be like, that's amazing. Like, I know I can do that. Maybe the timing was off, or something happened, or whatever. Hey, I learned that, or I learned little bits along the way. It's like, oh, so amazing and so grateful, instead of like, oh gosh, that was an epic fail, or what a huge bomb. Yeah. So, but I do think that that's, it makes all the difference, I think, of like how I move through like my day, for sure.
That's so beautiful. So well said. So for our audience who's tuning in right now, where can they find out more about you, about Roam, about Hatch? Tell us all the things.
Oh, yeah. So Roam, it's roamwares.com. So please, any additional information that we can share about how they're made, or our consciousness in terms of sustainability is all on there. And Hatch, our agency, is hatchinc.com.
Perfect. And are you on Instagram?
And I am on Instagram, and I am KSides88. And Hatch Inc. is Hatch Inc. on Instagram, and Roamwares is Roamwares on Instagram as well.
Beautiful. And that will all be in the show notes, guys, as always. Kay, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your brilliant light and positivity. I think we need this now more than ever.
Oh, Liz, thank you so much too. You're doing exactly the same. And thank you for creating this platform that is so beautiful, honestly, like just so generous. You have such a generous spirit of like to create this and want to be this platform, I think, for people to share, for women to share. I think it's so hugely meaningful, your service of what you're doing. So thank you for including me and having me today. It's really my pleasure and my privilege.
Oh my God, I want to have you back every week. What are you talking about?
You're so cute.
You have been listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you love this episode, please share it out on your social media, Instagram stories, and tag us at Motherhood Unstressed so we can share it back out and keep the conversation going on these important topics. Also, make sure that you subscribe so that you never miss out on an interview with an amazing guest or our weekly guided meditation. This episode is sponsored by Motherhood Unstressed CBD. This is my line of organic, USA-grown hemp that was specifically designed to help you, the listener, battle stress and anxiety naturally. And what CBD does is it helps your body's own endocannabinoid system function better. So you're sleeping better, you're experiencing less stress and anxiety, and you're able to get everything done with an overall feeling of security, of groundedness, of calm. So if you would like that in your life, head on over to motherhoodunstressed.com, click the shop tab, and use the code podcast to save.